Hello there everyone, this is Rocky at Deep Sea, and today we're diving into the programmatic ad industry's biggest open secret when it comes to ad-funded piracy. Why is it an open secret, you ask? Well, it doesn't start in a dark corner of the web where only ad industry tryhards like myself might find themselves. No, it starts in a place where many web researchers and media planners are going to find themselves, and that's at the top sites list on SimilarWeb. Myself, I'm presently in the global top 100 for December. Asking myself, how far do I have to scroll down to find ad-funded piracy? Well, the answer is 64, and I'll let you try to reproduce this yourself. If you feel I'm wrong, get in the comments. But here we are, 64. This is the first incidence of majorly visited piracy site, Zona TMO. It's got over 500 million uniques this month over 500 million visits across 20 million plus uniques. Just huge numbers. Time on site, over 20 minutes, much bigger than their cohorts in this list. Bounce rate, 20%, really great. So what's up with Zona TMO? Well, let's go and see how it connects to ad-funded piracy, as I claim. Well, here we are, a top 100 sites in the world. Let's say I want to watch or read Solo Leveling. Currently, a anime streaming on Crunchyroll. This is copyrighted material, and if I'd like to consume it, I have to click on one of these links. As I do so, I'm going to do a new tabs. You'll see I'm not going to be on Zona TMO anymore. I'll be on a laundering site. We have extensively documented these kinds of schemes before, and I would urge you to go to our blog to really dig into the topic if you want a deep dive. Today we're just going to show you some examples and then talk a bit more about why this is significant and unique. Okay, so as I open up these new tabs with my content to consume, I am no longer on Zona TMO. Now, for example, I'm on Ratio Motor. I got ads overlapping. I got videos playing. How can this be? Let's see, who's placed these? This is an Outbrain ad. Why? This is certainly against policy. But if you just go to Ratio Motor, you'll see nothing that looks like piracy, to be sure. And so now, another example, just for the sake of it, this is where another article opened up. I'm on Tech Titan, maybe? I don't know. Wall Street Journal ad, though. We got NetPub tag. We got... they're probably not going to like that I opened up the inspector. That's fine. Let's do it again. We've got infolinks IL_ ad unit. We'll get into more specifics about the exchanges and sellers involved in the data. Not going to be in this video, but again, if I just go to the root domain, it looks kind of okay, right? This doesn't look too crazy. Still, we got our NetPub ad unit here, and again, we're going to see why this is weird. Let's open up the terms of use and privacy policy. Right, okay, so we have responsible identity Nakamas Web SL. So we know this is what's really making this an open secret, is that they say who is the responsible identity. This is a company organized in Spain, and this is their registration number and their website. Again, Nakamas Web is their website here. Email listed social at Nakamas Web, same as we see in the laundering site, and we've proven this is laundering by getting to it from the piracy domain. By the way, the piracy domain, Zona TMO, like top 100 in the world, if I just go to read their privacy setting, so if I go to their privacy policy, wouldn't you know it, it is hosted on nakamasweb.com. So there is a deterministic connection here between Zona TMO, a litany of laundering sites, which, why don't we just get into the examples now? There are like a dozen active at a time or so. There have been hundreds over the course of years. So I just have visits here across some of the most popular ones in September, October, and November, pulled in December. So, and we have the domains here split into a couple classes: directory, where you go and find the content, and laundering, where you consume it, where programmatic ads can run, because they're quote-unquote clean sites. we'll see that like what's happening in September is very different from what's happening in November. If I look at the top sites visited in September, the top directory is Visor TMO, which now redirects to Zona TMO, right? Rotating cast of domains, not going to be a surprise to veterans here. And the laundering sites, top 2 were Ton Cycling and Cultura Animation. Now, if I go to November, top directory is Zona TMO. One of those is still around, but the other top ones are different. And we can even see like some of these sites that were active in September are no longer active at all. Some of them had a crazy ramp up between October and November. Like Baby Gnome Brace had 0 visits in September, 2 million in October, and over 100 million in November. Like this should set off alarms for any manager, any seller of this inventory. What's going on, right? So we know that there's a couple things that are true. There's a litany of laundering sites. We know that there is a common responsible entity. I encourage you, we'll share the site list. You can go check the privacy policies. Most all of them include this little chunk of text here, responsible entity, Nakamas Web SL. In fact, I can do a cursory Google search to find even more. Let's see what the results emitted. Yeah, Motor, War 10, Tanny Fashion, Ratio Motor, Ferro Motor, all in the site list that I'll be sharing on this article. So, we know all those sites exist, and we know that Nakamas Web is responsible for them. So who is Nakamas Web? As I mentioned, this is a very open secret. Like, it's crazy to me how open this secret is. Because if I just did a cursory Google search, I find a LinkedIn page for the co-founder of Nakamas Web, who happens to be also the chief technology officer of a company called Overgame Esports. And I found their socials, co-founder Nakamas Web Esports. So, like, this is something you just don't get in the ad fraud investigation space. You don't get a clear responsible entity. You don't get a person behind it. Usually they're fake companies, shell companies. We'll see how this all shakes out, but this is quite a unique case in that we have pretty much everything we need to assign blame here. The last bit that'll be uncomfortable for some is putting the blame on who's selling the inventory. The data that we'll share points to a couple entities that are commonly representing this inventory in the bid stream, either as an exchange or as a direct seller, a reseller. They have all sorts of types involved. The ASA.txt files are enormous. They list multiple managers. We'll try to include some comments in the research from other reputed experts about who they see as common top sellers. But, if I just look at some ad units here, this is the Google ad unit, right? We got receipt mode. By the way, this is a site had, just for the sake of showing, like why this is happening, or why I'm finding it hard to believe this is happening, is because you would think that the people who would represent these sites, we got info links, ad code here, IL underscore, would represent these sites, are taking a little bit of care, trying to understand where the traffic's coming from. In December, 0 visits. Nothing even in the last 28 days. This is a very new laundering front. They just set this one up. So why is it able to get demand? It's not quite clear to me. Anyhow, all that is to say, Zona TMO, Nakamas Web, and over 100 laundering fronts over the course of several years. What's the impact of that all, right? Let's take a look. I did some napkin math, and I'll share this in the article. Assuming, let's just look at November only, where if I just sum up across only the laundering fronts, understanding the directories will have a harder time using display and video ads to monetize. They have some other billing methods, but the laundering fronts generated over 1 billion views in November alone. And if we just assume an ad block rate that's very conservative, 50%, and that heavily reduces the monetizable visits, let's assume maybe they have just a minimum, let's say 2 ad units on page. That was like the least I ever saw it in my tests, and a typical load was about 4. And let's also assume that based on their time on site average stats and a generous industry standard refresh timing of 30 seconds, there will be this, typical amount of ads loaded per session with a light, typical, and heavy load. We're just going to use a little look at the light stats for now. I'll share this all in the research. If I just look at these light load, very conservative 1 cent CPM projection, in just November we're looking at over $200,000. Now I know that CPMs are depressed on pirated inventory for one reason or another, based on research we did with Jounce in the past, but I also did see from my cursory inspections of ad communications, which I don't think are representative of the world at whole, I did see CPMs upwards of 10 cents. So I don't think it's wrong to use the 10 cent CPM, obviously 10xing my initial projection, but I think the truth is probably somewhere in between 1 and 10 cents for a typical CPM here. There's been a whole range of inventory types announced. That's audio, video, native video, you name it. It's sold by Nakamas Web and their resellers. And at a still pretty conservative CPM of 10 cents, $2 million a month over the course of several years. We're talking tens of millions. Certainly some of that goes to server costs, and they have to always be rotating their domains. It's not trivial to do this, but clearly the juice is worth the squeeze. It's been going for years, and it has not been stopped. So what is with this open secret? Why is it allowed to thrive? My projection is that by the end of the year, it will not. Let's hope, right?